Oh, feel free to move.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. All right. Oh, well, it's just my accoutrements. So, like we said over on Facebook, the prequel to our Tarot Delights, we are doing the Death card.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's actually a great card.
It is a great card. And, you know, it's a very interesting card because as you know from doing many tarot readings, it very rarely means actual death.
Very true.
I think in the 20 plus years that I've been reading, I think it's only meant death less than a handful of times. And it's never been the death of the client I'm reading for.
That's got to be a little peace of mind for them.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I read for a lady whose husband was dying of cancer, and the death card came up, and we talked about that. So she was dealing with the death of her loved one, and, you know, death comes for us all. You know, there was a passage I was reading yesterday or today, can't remember when.
You get to read? I'm jealous.
I know, right? I get to read. So
Sorry.
I was
a lot of my reading doesn't go beyond like 4th grade at work anyway. So I'm like, you got to read something interesting?
Yes. So they were talking actually about the death card, and the quote that they kind of had with it, now I'm paraphrasing, of course, is that the angel of death, God has given the realm and rights to all of us, because the angel of death comes for all of us, and we cannot refuse the angel of death when they come. It's like the Grim Reaper kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And what is it now? They were talking about how because the angel will get you to dance the dance of death, because it's called the dance of death, right? And you who live however long, you will learn to dance eventually, kind of thing.
Which is interesting, and I love quotes that incorporate dancing as like either a metaphor or a way of illustrating a journey.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's essentially like death meets us at the end of our life's journey. But when it comes to tarot, the death card is kind of a rebirth of like maybe a creative venture, for example. Like it's not literal. So there's all these, depending on
we experience a lot of deaths through our lives that aren't actual deaths. You know, like, you know, even a move is a form of a death.
Because you're changing your environments and like it's a progression towards something
Well,
new.
even if you buy your dream home and you move into it, the home you were in before, you created memories. You maybe had a little family there. You know, you had your cats, your dogs, and all your holidays there. So you'll mourn that, even though it's like, oh, this is our dream home. We really want to live here. They'll still remember the time in our little house. You know, like you'll say things like that.
Kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all a form of death, a form of grieving for it.
But I feel like we need to almost have those little spots of progression or moving on from death to kind of level up in life.
Absolutely. And like, you know, you've heard me say many times, life is a dance itself, taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back.
Yep.
And we feel like we always have to repeat things because we're doing the next 2 steps and we've already been here. But that's what life is. It's about repetition, right? And it's all about cycles, right? You know, like we're going into winter right now.
Yeah, that cycle of...
And we know that spring's coming and summer will follow and then fall will be here again, kind of thing. So death is sort of part of that cycle, you know, especially if you believe in like reincarnation and things, that you know the journey is just transitioning and then we'll come back around. And what I really like about death, like you said, it's a transition because we're ready to move on. And it's the number 13. Which most people view as a bad luck number. Superstition. But really in numerology, it breaks down to 4. And 4 is the foundational number.
Stability.
Yeah.
No, that my brain just was like, ooh.
And 4 is the number where now you can level up in life.
Okay, that makes sense because as you leave small things behind, like say moving from a different house, you're leveling up to a new house.
Yeah.
Or you not lose a job, but like you choose to leave one job, and that's kind of like a death because you're
Yeah.
going into a new environment and new situations, and you're leaving the old comfortable situation behind, and you're leveling up in that. So you'll there's that stability.
Got the
but-
corner office.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So and it's an interesting card, especially in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, because it's, you know, a skeleton in black armor. Now the death card started out mostly as a corpse was on the card and some of the early versions.
Interesting.
And he transitioned into a skeleton.
I'm good with skeleton. I'm not a fan of filleted meat as far as
And
humankind.
He rides the white horse. I think this is where sort of the Grim Reaper sort of image.
Well, the white horse also doesn't it have like a biblical meaning as well?
Yeah, well, white is purity and he's black, so death is very like black and white. You
Yeah.
either are dead or you aren't dead. It's sort of like I watch People's Court and she's like, you can never be a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't.
A little bit pregnant. Really? I can only imagine how those go. Like, mind you, I have met people that are like, I had no idea I was pregnant. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we've all heard those stories, right? It's like the woman goes into the bathroom and suddenly has a baby. It's like,
used to be
what?
my favorite show growing up, Untold Stories of the ER. Like, obviously high school and beyond. But like, because I'd always used to be like, how did you not know? But like, I've met people who, for whatever reason, their body hid this from them. And so it's a legit thing.
Oh, but you know, he's got the black flag with the white rose, and the white rose is supposed to represent life, right? And that's what it traditionally represents. And you'll notice there's a lot of elements on this card that are on other cards. Like they've got the Towers of the Moon card
Oh, yeah, you're right.
in the background.
Because even, so mine's a more modern rendition of the RWS, but it does mirror a lot of what's already in the RWS because you've got the towers in the background.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no.
And you'll notice too in the background there's a ship that's sailing across a river. Now this river could be the River Styx, but the river is in a few other cards that have, but the boat might be more topsy-turvy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a swords card.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Is it the Six of Swords? It might be the Six of Swords. Six and Seven of Swords, as far as like meanings, I kind of have to like think hard on them. So I
Okay.
always remember which one has the.
But if you've got the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, look through it because this river comes across a few
does.
cards.
Whether the person is looking at, because I know there's a few cards where the person is standing almost like on a outlet, and then the river is like below them
Oh,
as
okay.
well too. So like
Right.
there are definitely some cards in the
Yeah.
RWS where that
Yeah.
river is definitely prominent.
And it's interesting too that the priest or pope is in front of him offering prayers or whatever. The king is dead though. He's underneath the horse here. And then there's a child and there's a woman. So they're, I think, supposed to represent all facets and classes of humanity. And they're in various
I
stages
find it
of.
interesting that yours is the king because mine doesn't.
Yeah, because see, there's his crown.
Yep. Mine doesn't have like.
And he's got the ermine fur, which is usually a royal thing, right?
It might be he may have money in his hands on mine.
But the funny thing is, the Pope, or whatever he is, bishop, cardinal, his staff has fallen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So death sort of, and that's part of that passage that I was reading about is neither gold nor silver, nor money, nor power can you bribe death with.
No, death is like one of those things that regardless of who you are, it is gonna come for you.
Yeah,
In-
there's no
in-
bargaining. It's not like,
No.
you know, like,
But there are some really interesting shows that the premise in that show, like I feel like the early seasons of Supernatural, all they're doing is bargaining for their lives back. Like
Oh,
each one of
okay.
them survives and one of them dies, and the other one's like, no, you gotta save my brother, and they like sell their soul. Multiple seasons. It's we've learned that if a character dies on that show, they don't actually die.
right. Yeah, on The Simpsons, Bart sold his soul, didn't he?
Yes, I remember that episode because it's like they had the dream or whatever where it's like the child and their soul and they're rowing
Oh, right.
across the river Styx or something, and then
yes.
if Bart doesn't have a soul, so he doesn't get to row across.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's-
why would you cross the river Styx? You don't have a soul.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, some interesting concepts out there. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you know, death is actually a very hopeful card. Mm-hmm. Even though on TV they've demonized it.
It really is unfortunate because I feel like the card in and of itself with its original meanings and or with cards around it, like you wouldn't think, so this is my chakra healing tarot. You wouldn't think that this is like the traditional death card. So she's
Right.
got like transformation and butterflies, and you're talking about sacral. Hang on. Yep. Sacral and your solar plexus chakras.
Oh, okay. So right at your core.
Yeah, right at your core, and you're like probably moving your foundation of things because you're, you know, as you said, you're stabilizing and then moving up.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And of course, sacral is for women is where life is created. So what's opposite life? Death, right?
Yep.
So that, yeah, that. Although they're kind of two sides of one coin.
It's true.
You know, it's sort of like they say love, hate. They're opposite sides of a coin.
Yeah.
Because the line is very thin, and it's you know, people drop the word hate. I hate this person. Or I hate that.
People drop the word hate too often. I
They
think.
do. It should be a 4-letter word. Like it should like. As a kid, we would get slapped if we used the word hate. You know, like we would get in trouble for dropping the F-bomb too. But my mom, I know for sure, wanted us to drop an F-bomb before we dropped the H-bomb.
Yeah.
So to speak. you know?
The H bomb. I feel like that in certain circles that means an entirely different thing.
Yeah, yes. I'm sure it does, yes. So what other cards do you have here for death?
I was just reading up on the
Wildwoods?
Wild Tarot. I really like, so again, I know we're talking a lot about Sasha Graham's deck because I love the Witch's Garden. She'll be at the tarot conference.
Yes.
But this is the Witch's Garden Tarot, and this I love this death card because it's like the offering from the child, and she's not really afraid of death.
Right. Yeah, because children don't know to be afraid.
No.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
I also just love the color combinations, like the orange against the green, and that's always been a really this deck really, especially in the Pentacles, really screams autumn to me. So it's like every suit also had a season.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And autumn is that lead up to death, of course,
Yeah.
because we're harvesting and
You're harvesting your everything, and then if whatever stays gets killed off by winter, because
Yeah.
not a lot is gonna stay.
no, and then we go into the deep sleep of winter, the inside reflection and all that good stuff. I love winter myself. I know that's controversial because most people are like, winter, can't stand it.
Well, I mean, there's pros
I love
and cons,
every
right?
yeah, I love every season.
Well, I feel like yeah, there's every season has a place, and like I know.
And
Like-
especially as Canadians, we experience all 4 seasons.
Yes,
It's not
yes,
like
we do.
California where you have summer all the time.
I still any movie that's like filmed in California about like Florida and it's like a Christmas movie and I'm like, why is there no snow?
Yeah, it feels weird when
It
there's
does!
no snow.
We did a trip to Florida one Christmas and I got burnt.
Oh,
Because
no.
Disney was closed on Christmas Day. No,
Oh.
was it? I don't remember. We didn't go anywhere Christmas Day.
Okay.
I got burnt on the beach on Christmas Day because I was reading in the sun too long.
Oh.
And I was like, this is weird. Normally I'm like freezing and can't feel my face and
Right,
like
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's tradition for people in Britain to go to the movies on Christmas Day.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like a big thing.
That's interesting because I know when one of my family members lived in Germany in high school, and basically you go to mass. So that part of my family is very Catholic. You go to mass and you come home and open your Christmas presents when mass is over.
Like midnight mass?
Yeah, midnight
oh,
mass.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandma did it that way.
Yeah.
My country grandma.
It was like bizarro to me though because I didn't experience that until like later. So
And
I
they didn't put up the tree until like Christmas Eve.
really
Yeah, like the day of Christmas Eve.
Oh, see, my stepmom's like a total Christmas nut, so she'll have it up like November.
Well, I guess
1st.
back then, like it was just they always did real trees.
So then, yeah, you would
You
save it.
can't put it up 2 weeks
No.
ahead because you'll end up with dry
Very
tree.
dry tree.
Yeah.
There are no green left.
No, exactly. So yeah,
The
so
poor tree.
they usually put it up, I think, about the day ahead or maybe 2 days ahead of Christmas. And I'm like, that's a lot of stuff all in a short amount of time. Although, you know, Christmas is 12 days, right? Christmas Day is the first. That's when the partridge is in the pear tree. That's the first day of Christmas.
And we've got just 11 more days to go.
Exactly. And they used to traditionally celebrate that. And the Yule log, for instance, was designed to burn for a long period of time, usually about 24 hours. Because normally if you're taking care of a wood stove or a wood fireplace,
You would want them
you're
to burn, yeah.
constantly taking care of it, right? You have to babysit that thing. Because I used to
Well, there's also different traditions
heat
with,
by wood. And,
with Yule too. Man, we're getting ahead of. So it's funny that we didn't do this on Halloween because in the Wildwood Tarot, the death card is called the Journey,
oh,
and it's highlighted during Halloween or like
oh,
Samhain.
okay.
Fell. The journey placed at Samhain is falls on November 1st or All Hallows Eve is associated with the waning moon in the element of water and earth, and it is time of the dead. So like that veil thinning and
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, because I had so many people, especially the week leading up to Samhain or Halloween, wanting readings.
Yep.
And they're like, if I don't get in time, like, am I going to miss it? It's like, no, like, it's not like the door opens and then slam, it's shut again. It's like,
It's not gonna work after 11:59.
because you can get mediumship readings all year long if you want.
I'm sorry. I can just imagine the spiritual realm. Sorry, closed.
Yeah, we're closed for business. We don't want to talk to you anymore.
Sorry.
Now, there are some that, you know, come in and they want to talk to a particular soul. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that soul is busy right now.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of hit a answering machine or whatever.
and that's fascinating to me about mediumship. So like I haven't personally explored like my talents with mediumship, but I have done a couple, like been a part of a couple mediumship readings, and they're so vastly different. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
the experience is very unique to the individual getting the reading, and also like to whatever spirit decides to come through. Because I think it was when my brother passed away. I really wanted to like, but then it was also like a little early in the situation
okay.
too. So
Yeah.
like I also understand there's that like lull.
That cooling down period.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'll ask the person who they want to pull in as they're booking it, and I'll say, when did they pass?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like a week since they've passed, and it's like, that's way too soon.
Yeah, they have to figure themselves out on the other side first.
Yeah, because I've done it where it's been sooner than I realized because I didn't know to ask when I was first starting to do mediumship, and the one time that I did that, the spirit came through very confused.
Oh, because they probably haven't equated themselves with.
Yeah, like,
Like,
because you're in a
leaving.
whole other place
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
And you've got shit to do, right? Like, you got to watch your life movie and do a book report.
Sorry, I'm just imagining this like person sitting down to watch a life movie and getting pulled away of like, what's going on? Where am I supposed to go now? Sorry.
My popcorn was just done.
I was watching the best part.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to take light, but like some of the stuff we end up saying, like in my head, I'm just like replaying.
You gotta
this.
laugh at
Yeah.
things. I mean, come on. Don't take death so seriously, right?
It's not final.
Exactly.
It's just final in this life. That's all.
Exactly. Well, my grandmother's funeral card, you know, those little funeral cards you get, she had a great thing on it. And it's funny because my grandma was very religious, and my family on my Irish side is extremely religious, but she didn't have a prayer or anything like that. She had a little poem that was just beautiful, and it was titled, "I'm Just in the Next Room."
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So it was sort of like, don't worry, I'm just in the next room. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm just in the next room. And I'll be here when it's time for you to come into this room. And I'm like, I mean, the joke in our family is if any of us went to hell, Grandma would definitely not allow it. She'd come down to hell and drag us back to heaven.
Not one of mine.
Yeah, exactly. She would defy God and say, sorry, nope. You got this one wrong. She's coming to hell, heaven, I mean. It's like, okay. It's like, Grandma's our get out of jail free card.
Imagine, because like I have some pretty opinionated people that have passed, and I'm like, I can only imagine them like bickering up there, being like, no, we're gonna take bets on who's gonna end up where, and then like people who have had near life death experiences or have like traveled to that other side and then come back have stated that that if they're close to kind of the end of things, they see people and they see like people kind of come get their spirit and help them
Or
pass
if
on.
it's too soon, someone will come sometimes, I've heard too, and say,
And be like,
it's
no,
not
no.
your time.
Yeah. I can just imagine them. Like I have an Irish side of my family, and I could see them like working out. Like no, this person's gonna be this way, and then we think they're going that way, and I don't know. I just think now I want to make like a comic strip of this.
Yeah, exactly, right?
little adventures of the spiritual side.
Oh my goodness. Now, for my fairy tale deck, Sleeping Beauty is the death card.
That makes sense.
It totally does. When I, looked up, I'm like, oh, Sleeping Beauty. Because they say sleep, I think the French have a term for it. It's called a little death. And that's why it's so important to make your bed and honor where you sleep. Because you're creating a space for your little death each night.
That's interesting. It's an interesting ritual.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. I'm not great for making my bed.
My husband and I have different sleeping habits, so I'm just like, but we'll both make it because like Bosco eats carrots on our bed before he goes to bed because
Right.
he'll jump down.
It's her little corgi.
My little quirky, he's adorable, but he knows it's bedtime because Josh will throw carrots, but he always he gets his side of the bed ready, and then I usually jump in my side and get all my blankets situated, and then he throws the carrots on the bed. It's like a stuffle mat.
Oh, okay.
And carrots are like the least messiest thing. Like there's nothing left over. We make sure there's no crumbs.
Yeah.
And
And who cares if you're sleeping on a little carrot crumb?
no. If he doesn't find it that night, it's gone by the next morning.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and as you were saying about the ritual, I'm like, we're horrible for making our bed, but we actually do. We make it just before we get in it.
Yeah, you don't have to make it as soon as you wake up or anything. As long as you make it and honor it before you get into it. So, Sleeping Beauty from the Grimm's Fairy Tales, 1891. So this is the newer version. 1812, I believe, was their original version.
Oh, okay.
The 100 years had passed, and the day arrived when Briar Rose would be awakened from her sleep. As the prince approached the hedge, instead of thorns and briars, he saw only flowers, because all the princes that had come before him couldn't get through the thorns and stuff like that. And but for him, he was the one, I guess. So, yeah, it's like... for the fairy tale lore, it says the enchanting birth of little Briar created such excitement that the king decided to hold a great banquet. Now, in this particular one, they talk about the Black Fairy, but sometimes she's also called the 13th Fairy.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because she's
That's
the one that
interesting.
comes in and, puts the curse on Sleeping Beauty, so she'll prick her finger on a spinning wheel. Again, weaving and spinning and crafting comes back in, right? And she's supposed to die with that prick. But there's one good fairy, quote unquote, that has hidden away. And she's actually the youngest of the fairies, too, that were invited. So she comes out of hiding when the 13th fairy, the Black Fairy, leaves, who is insulted because she didn't get an invite. And the youngest fairy says, well, I can't erase the curse. None of them could, but I can change it. So she changed it so she would fall asleep for 100 years. She also made it so everyone else in this particular fairy tale, so everyone else fell asleep for 100 years, because if they kept living, Briar Rose would wake up and not know anybody.
Yeah. So they put the whole castle under the spell.
They did, yes.
That tracks with the Disney version.
Yeah, except there's a dragon, I think, involved.
Yes, because
Maleficent,
the
yeah.
Black Fairy, which in Disney is Maleficent, she turns into the dragon. But she's definitely the Black Fairy. 'Cause
Yes, yeah, true, true. Absolutely. Yeah, the uninvited 13th fairy or wise woman was the
I like
enchantress.
that they call her a wise woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so the 12th fairy, trump number 12, the hanged one, is traditional tarot tempered the curse, which then fated the child to 100 years of sleep. Death card often appears for young people during the time of adolescence at the beginning of menstrual cycles or women, the onset of menopause.
Well, I mean, they are going through a really big change at both of those times.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're young adult, you're going through like a hormonal change and also a life
Yeah, it's a life cycle.
cycle. Sorry, the cycle. That's the one I wanted. Is life cycle change, and same with the menopause. When you're going through another life cycle change.
Yeah, because at the age of 13 or 14, depending on sometimes 12, depending on when your cycles hit, you now are able to become a mother. And I know in my household, my mom really made that a very serious and sacred thing. Like, now you have the ability to bring life into the world. And we were never allowed to call our period the curse or the rag or anything like that. She said never degrade it because it's your superpower. And as females, we're the only ones who can do that. Right? Who, like, I mean, yes, we need men to help us with that process as they figured out. But, you know, it's like we carry the child, we, experience the whole upheaval of our own bodies, the upheaval of labor itself, because there's, horrible things that happen. You get stretch marks, you get torn, and all for the child, right? And you're happy at the end. I mean, yes, it's horrible to go through sometimes, but you're like, yeah, but then I've got this little parcel of joy who's going to cost me a fortune to raise. And then a lot of people, like a lot of women, go through a very emotional time for menopause, right? Like, it's not just the hot flashes. It's not just the, dryness down there, as they say. But it's also the whole, change of attitude and things like that. But what I love is that's your crone stage. And the belief, especially in the Wiccan and occult world, is that now the blood that you've been putting out as a mother, and it's not just for children. Sometimes it's our creative endeavors or our mothering of, like, an animal, or creative endeavors as far as, like maybe a book or an art piece or whatever. But now the wisdom of ourselves goes into our bones through our blood. So our blood gets poured.
Repurposed, kind of, almost.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay, yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I was like, where is it going? But my brain went somewhere weird.
Yeah, so it's back in our bones, and it's supposed to create wisdom.
Well, that would make sense because you also have more life experience as you get older. So to be it would make sense that that term wise woman would be applied because you've raised your children if you've chosen to have them.
Or you've had some form of a family.
Yeah.
Like even women who couldn't have children, let's say, there still often was the agricultural element, especially back in the day, right? Like, you worked hard and you learned some life hacks and things like that. So
You're able to pass those down.
and the theory is that we get wiser as we get older. It's not always true, but
We're hoping. Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. But especially if you embrace your menopausal time and your time of crone, like really reflecting on what wisdom have I garnered? What wisdom can I pass along? Like I said, whenever I've had crones that have been mentors of mine, they start giving stuff away, right? And like, I can point to a million things that this was given, that was given, whether it's from a client, whether it's from a crone. But yeah, some of my best books have been given to me by crones.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, you're giving me this is amazing. And I keep telling Catherine, look, all of this will be yours. Whether she throws it out or donates it once I die, I don't know. But
It's a long way off still.
yeah. At least another 40 years. I plan to die at 104.
I love that plan.
Yeah, there you go.
Putting it out in the universe now. She's gonna make it to 104.
104. Just keep track of me. Keep watching this station.
How many episodes are we gonna be by then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you'll be in your upper years then too.
Yeah. I'll be. We're
the
looking at
80s?
another 100. You said another 4. Like, wait, huh?
Well, if I'm 104, you're what, 20 years behind me?
Yep. So I'll be in my 80s.
In your 80s.
Yep.
We'll be two old women telling you the wisdom of tarot.
And to think of all the knowledge we're gonna soak up between now and then.
Exactly, right? It'll be fantastic.
If we don't forget what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know, right?
Let's be honest.
We might be wearing diapers
Yeah.
and, going, where the hell did she put my coffee? It's like, you never had a coffee.
Oh man, we're in for it.
Exactly. Oh, but the death card is definitely, like I said, I like the excitement of the death card because it means transition, especially since it's a major arcana, there's a big
Well, I like the
transition.
idea of rebirth. So the Light Seers card has, I'm trying to think, like, it doesn't have a face on the death card. It has like a starry sky. So I really like that
a
concept.
red hood.
Yeah, that red hood that like you see the ending of a cycle and that you're moving forward and that there's infinite possibilities.
Yeah, and I love the red hood because it means you have the knowledge, you're ready to move forward because you've got that life experience, that knowledge, whatever it is
Yeah.
you need, right, to up your game, so to speak. And I can tell when I'm talking to a gamer or not because I always say, when it comes up, I'm like, oh, you're about to level up in life. And some people go, what? And other people go, oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also too like the like popularity of video games has like really bloomed. I don't want to
Yeah.
say bloomed, but like expanded.
Yeah.
And so some of the terminology like people can kind of cross reference.
Yeah.
And leveling up is totally an understandable term because you like
Yeah.
they play levels in games and that's how you get better as a character. And I love using that term in life. It's like I'm not another year older. I just leveled up.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right? And embrace the the moving forward because this society, especially in North America that we live in, is very anti getting older.
Yes.
It's like use the
You're
cream for your
bombarded.
wrinkles
Yes,
and
you're bombarded with a lot of 90% of the beauty industry. I swear is like, oh, you look too old for this. Here's something for that.
yeah. And I know that there's ageism in hiring processes
Yep.
because you'll only be with us for a couple of years, and I get like there's a cost factor to hiring a new employee, but when you hire a new older employee, maybe there's not as much training or
No.
maybe there's not as much of a learning curve because they've done this before or they've they can learn faster because they have some experience with this or whatever it might be. I don't know, but I think like we don't honor our elders in the same way that we once did
Or we should.
or should.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I know we shouldn't shut ourselves, but you're right. Like, and it's interesting because it takes a while to really sink in because as a young adult and then as somebody who is like trying to figure their life out and going 5 different directions, I almost wish I could like slow down time because I have people in my life that are reaching that older stage and I'm like, I just want to spend time with you, but I literally have no time.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah.
unless I really make it a priority, and I am trying to, but like it's
yeah,
hard.
it's worth it. Because I know, like, when you're young, you've got obligations, you've got jobs, you've got social life, and all this kind of stuff. But like I said, one of my most treasured memories is one of the last conversations I had with my grandma when I had to get on the boat, go over to Wolf Island, blah blah blah. It was a whole big thing, but I went because I wanted to ask her the question of what was it like when you were young. And then, as you and I can tangent, and we went all afternoon.
Yeah.
I spent like probably 4 or 5 hours just talking with her, and it was just her and I, one-on-one.
Oh god.
And I loved it. And it's like I said, it's one of my most precious things in my life. And like, I could have spent a Saturday here earning money, but I was like, nope, you couldn't pay me
Yep.
enough to have that memory.
that's it.
And I found out that my great grandmother was actually a single mom
Oh.
for a long time because her husband had passed, and she had
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 kids, I think. And it was like, and in those days, it was like she read about actual Jesse James in her newspaper.
Ooh.
So we're going back a ways.
Well, and you never know the like nuggets of wisdom people have. I know one of my family members has done like an ancestry thing, and I've learned tons of stuff
Yeah.
from even them. Like I can on one side of my family I can trace it all the way back to Ireland. Like
Nice.
like all the way back.
Wow.
Because someone has
Wow.
taken the time and talked to the elders within our family and like written everything down and like put it into like ancestry or whatever, or like taken the time to put it into a book. And so like it
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Like my aunt has done that. Now, all the way to Ireland means my grandfather, because he was right off the boat Irish. So it's like, but she has gone and done some very heavy research. Now, the sad thing is that a couple of the churches that, baptismal and birth certificates and marriage certificates were in burnt.
yeah.
So, that's where the record keeping kind of halts. And there's nothing like getting it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's great to have ancestry and to be able to date back and see this
But
and
to
hear
see
that.
it like really recorded and down and like yeah.
And
no.
to sit down and have a conversation so you're getting the tone of what that person is saying is just such a gift. And we need to sit down with our older people and take the time, because they're fuddy-duddies, and they'll tell a story like 8 ways around it, and they'll tangent off, and you'll have to bring them back to what the original question was. But again, it's like that's the beauty of getting older, right?
Well, I feel like we full circle that way because I do that at work with
Yeah.
the kids.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, okay, we spend most of the time trying to be like, Kate, to the point.
Yeah.
You're focused on this. What about this? Do you need me to know? And then you have to bring them back again because they went off on a tangent about something else. What about this? Do you need me to know? And then we grow up and we refine it, and then somewhere we forget it. And then we go back to being tangents and children.
And children, we start wearing diapers again, and have
It's
to
like
wear,
that full circle moment.
have to eat mushy food again. But like, we know our children are precious. I wish
sure.
we would, realize our older people are also precious, because the knowledge that they have, because you can uncap it even when it's like hard because there's a Alzheimer's or dementia involved or whatnot.
Music is a big way to uncap a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been studies done. I know people who are attached to like famous ballet companies
Okay.
previously who are like elderly now.
Right.
If they play old scores, they'll start to like remember the choreography, and it's
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah, that's like a great aunt of mine. She sat down at a piano, and she was very dementia, right? And she started playing because her fingers remembered the keys, and she was a really amazing piano player.
Wow, that's
And it was just
awesome.
like, oh wow, and it sort of brought her back a little bit, right? So you do have those clear moments as you get older. I mean, one of my biggest fears is having dementia, and hopefully I'll enjoy the ride for whatever it is. But like, it doesn't help when we tuck our old away and don't visit them and they feel neglected or uncared for, because that's only going to exasperate the situation.
Well, and that's it, and especially if they don't understand. So if they don't have somebody near them who can help them, I've seen both ways. So luckily, I've seen the better way, like which is having someone near. But there's been other ways where it's just been not the case, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Because I know on my Irish side, we were very big for a very long time of people died at home,
Yep.
right? Like, my little claim to fame is that I believe my grandfather was one of the last people that was allowed to be waked in his own home, on his own dining room table. Again, he's Irish.
I was gonna say that's Irish right there.
Yeah, that's very Irish. But I don't think, legally, I don't think you can do that anymore.
Oh.
And it's like, but I did find out you can just be wrapped in linen and thrown in the ground. That's what I want done.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you can say no formaldehyde. I don't want any formaldehyde.
No, don't
'Cause I-
preserve me. Just
But
let me go.
they present it when you're at the funeral home as if it's a normal, ordinary thing to do.
But it really isn't.
It's not. Well, it does preserve the body. Well, if you have a wake or whatever, but you're not decaying that fast. And I'm like, no, I want to go back to Mother Earth as clean as I can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
like the
granted,
idea
I
of-
do like sugar, so I'm not doing my body any favors, but I don't want formaldehyde.
It's like this is the week after Halloween. Everyone's full of sugar.
I tried popping rocks for the first time in a
How is
long time.
that?
I was like, oh yeah, I remember those. And then
Now
I
you're
was
like, I don't know if I like this.
I know. I was like, I might be starting to get a headache because it was still popping and I hadn't swallowed it all. And I'm like, oh, I regret this decision.
I felt bad. So there's families that come for like hockey games and stuff, and like sometimes they don't realize we're not allowed to bring outside food and beverage.
oh.
So we had to take like $25 worth of candy from people.
Oh.
And I'm like, I can't guarantee this, but if you come back, it's probably still gonna be here. Because we like the garbage we throw it in isn't an actual garbage. Like it's literally like that was the only thing in it. So
Okay.
they came back and they were like, "Can we take it?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's yours. Like
Yeah.
we're not gonna keep it.
Yep.
We just can't let it in the building."
Right,
But
right.
yeah, no, it made me think of because it wasn't the popping rocks. They had Fun Dip.
Oh, did they? Oh, yeah.
love Fun Dip.
Yeah, yeah. I introduced my granddaughters to that this summer, I think it was. And I'm like, you take the little stick, you lick it, and then you put it in.
Yeah.
They thought it was the greatest thing since sliced
Oh,
bread.
I love it. And people are weird with their candy too, because like even today, one of the caretakers that works at our school, he was like, "Oh, Starburst," and then he was like, "Oh, why are they gummy?" So he's like, he wanted the
Oh.
original Starburst,
Yeah.
but they were like the gummy ones, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's
don't
like
know.
lifesavers. You cannot find hard lifesavers to save your life.
except the mint ones. I think the mint ones are still
Yeah, I
around.
think they're still around. But you know, like every Christmas, I like to buy my son the multicolored.
Yeah, that was like a
Lifesaver.
staple growing up.
Yeah, and you remember the old lifesaver books?
Yes.
Well,
The one I never understood why they gave you a whole caramel chunk on that one.
yeah,
I
that
was
was
like,
weird.
ugh.
Yeah, like
Give me
come
an
on.
extra like fruity one. Don't give me a blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, you can tell those weren't my favorite. But like I do, I remember those books, and like for a second I thought it was a fever dream because like you can't find them.
No, you can't. No, you can't. It's like bring them back. Bring them back.
Well,
Come
there's
on.
a lot of things that like it wasn't like there's cereals that used to be when we were like
Oh,
littler.
well, I got Fruit Loops. Not too
Those are
long.
awesome.
But they're so much paler. No, this is because they've taken out the hardcore food coloring.
The dyes that'll actually do something to your system that you're not actually supposed to have.
Exactly.
So
So
they're
I was
not-
eating it. I'm like, is my sight going, or are these like duller looking than they used to be? Because it used to be like, oh, look at all the bright colors. And-
Yeah, because it eventually turns your milk that color.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh, and then I was reading on the box how it's more natural dye.
Yep.
So more natural dye, of course, is not as fun
Well, you really-
as the toxic
you-
nuclear dye.
I was
They
gonna say, you wonder why we have such a spike in cancer. Jesus.
Yeah, right.
What did we put into our bodies in like the 80s and
Like
90s?
Fruit Loops, nuclear loops is what they were.
Captain Crunch was a favorite.
Yeah, I love Captain Crunch.
It's
yeah.
so bad for you.
Oh, it is. I
not
get
an
it every
ounce.
once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, like once a year I buy like one of these kind of cereals and
But I mean,
but Captain Crunch you can practically snack on it.
Oh,
like,
totally.
without milk, you know.
I do that with Honey Nut Cheerios. I will
yeah,
keep
yeah.
a bag of Honey Nut Cheerios on me.
Yeah.
Because there are days where I'm like, I guess I'm eating my lunch while walking as the kid bolts
Yeah,
out the door.
Honey Nut Cheerios was about as far as my mom would go.
Yeah.
Because we had shredded wheat, we had shreddies. I think we had cornflakes once in a while, but mom liked it because she would use it on the
My grandfather
pork chops.
literally went through like years of eating that straight, and I'm like, whoa.
Oh god.
Frosted Flakes are where cornflakes
Yeah.
with sugar is mine.
Yeah, exactly. But we were never allowed to have Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes.
Oh my god,
Captain
my dad,
Crunch.
My stepdad would have died. He used to eat like
Oh, no.
cookies by the row.
No, we couldn't have any of it. It's bad for you.
Well, of
So-
course it's bad for you, but it still sells.
I know, right? So when I became married and on my own, I was like, yeah, we're getting them all.
It's amazing sometimes the decisions you make as an adult. Like, what was the, it was my anniversary recently with Josh, and he was like, so we gave each other cards because that's the first year paper anniversary.
Right.
But he brought me cookies. He brought me Viva Puffs, and I was like, oh, I haven't had those in a while. Because I'll go through spurts of like, yes, I want it, and then
Yeah.
I'll forget it exists for like a year and a half.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, I haven't had those in a
Yeah,
while.
Viva Puffs is another thing I buy maybe once a year.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I was craving them, but now I'm not so much anymore. I realized why I don't buy these.
I now understand why you shouldn't use. So I took a behavioral psychology degree in college. Catherine took it too, so you'll understand this.
Yeah.
So edible reinforcers, not the best thing to use because then you get hooked on them. That is how I wrote my thesis. I would be like, article written, summary done, Viva Puff. Next one, article written, summary done, Viva Puff.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's never a carrot stick you're rewarding
No.
yourself with. I always say find your carrot.
Yes.
But it's never ever
No.
a carrot.
never a carrot. Are you kidding?
Yeah, really. Oh my god.
But like since then, because I did use them, I'm very sparingly will I buy Viva Puffs. 'Cause I'm like,
okay.
I think I satiated the.
yeah, that's the only thing I can't get down with for breakfast is chocolate stuff for breakfast.
Oh yeah, no.
Like or Nutella. I'm sorry. I know there's some
I mean,
diehard
you could do
Nutellas out there.
Nutella with like. So I'm trying to think. So
My daughter does it on toast and stuff every once in a while.
Who
I'm
does?
like, no.
it wasn't this until the summer when I started because like the kid is pretty picky about what he eats. So they're just like, as long as he's eating, we don't care what he eats. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so what am I? They're like, Nutella, waffles, pancakes, like whatever. And I was like, okay. So I was like, what do I want for breakfast? And like, I would never eat this for myself because it's horrible for you. But like, he needed the energy anyway, and he burned it off. So it's not like we were giving him like horrible things.
Yeah,
and, like
yeah.
really hefty dinners. So it like balanced out.
Right.
But like every day I was like, pancakes, waffles, Nutella, peanut butter. Like it was delicious. I was like, man, I wish I could have that. It was great.
Well, and there's that Crave cereal that's also chocolatey, and then there's Count
Oh.
Chocula.
Oh yeah, no, I never got into the Count Chocula.
Yeah, and I don't understand Lucky Charms. Who wants marshmallows first thing in the morning? I do not.
So I went
No.
through a phase of if people keep marshmallows in the house for like bonfires, I will every so often be like, oh, there's a marshmallow. But I'll only take
yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
they're the big fat ones, right?
Yeah, I'll eat one.
But never in the morning.
No, never in the morning.
That's
am
like
I
straight sugar.
exactly? And like I don't even like. I keep marshmallows for the bonfire because the kids will do it every once in a while. But I don't like bonfire marshmallows.
Oh, you gotta do it slow, slightly. I don't like burnt bonfire marshmallows.
Oh, I was
But if
the
you do
queen
it-
of how do you want it?
Oh, okay, because if you do it ever so slightly, it's just gotta have that little bit of crisp, but like
Yeah.
warm, gooey inside, but not a crispy outside.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because there were some that would just
And don't ruin
burn
it with
it.
chocolate. I understand the whole s'mores situation, and that is fantastic for everyone who likes s'mores. But
Yeah.
leave marshmallows and chocolate separate for me, please.
Yeah, me too. Me too. My daughter loves s'mores. I'm always buying her s'mores kits and stuff. And
Yep.
but I'm not into the s'mores thing. Never. Have
I mean,
been.
and I maybe it has something to do with like my childhood, right? Because like we were exposed to s'mores as a child, but my cousins taught me how to like roast a marshmallow properly. I'm like, I'll never go back. This is it. I'm ruined.
I would eat the raw marshmallow while I was roasting a marshmallow for someone.
You're like, all right, here's yours. This is mine. Here's
Because like someone would say, I just want it lightly toasted, like you said,
Yeah.
just crisp a little bit and gooey on the inside. Some would be like, I want medium. I was like, I was taking orders for steaks. You know, do you want it medium rare, your marshmallow? Okay, here we go.
it's like the barista of marshmallow over here.
Exactly. Oh,
Oh, that's fantastic.
never ate any of my own roasting.
I mean, there's something to be said about don't sample the product.
I think that's mostly for drug dealers.
I know.
Although they say sugar is a drug.
Yeah.
The white man's poison, as the native community calls it.
Well, and I mean, caffeine is the world's most accepted drug. Because, like, so I used to work at Tim Hortons eons ago. And I mean, that's a hard job. I bow down to the people that are still doing it. 'Cause
Absolutely.
no thanks.
Yeah.
Watching people come in 2-3 times a day, same order.
Wow.
Like, and I'm like, are you.
Like you couldn't do that in a liquor store.
No.
If they saw you 2 or 3 times,
They'd be like, you're cut off.
yeah, you're cut off. And they're supposed to legally, if they know you're drunk, cut you off anyways.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, if you're a regular like
The
that.
most like, I honestly think there's
Yeah.
well, there's also studies.
And I know some people that would go even more than that.
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, I'm saying that's the light. Those are the light ones.
Right. Yeah.
But normally you'd see regulars like once in the morning before work, or
Yep.
if they're like, oh, I'm pulling a double, came in for my Timmy's, and then go back to work.
Yeah.
But some of the people I saw like 4 and 5 times a day, I'm like, how do you have this much money?
Well, first of all, where do you find the time to go 4 or 5 times a day? Because if you get into the lineup, you never know. You could be there 10, 15 minutes, right?
Oh, so if I can't order ahead in the morning, I don't go.
Oh, okay. You do that. Well, that's a new thing.
It is a new thing, but it's the only way, because like I can't handle so if it sits on the counter for 10 minutes and I have to reheat it, that's fine. Because I would rather know that I can walk in, pick it up, and walk out
Okay.
than order and have to wait 15 minutes.
Right.
Because I'm like, I need to get to work.
Right.
I'm a
right.
mess in the morning. I will fully admit.
I mean, granted, most of the lineups are fair.
oh, they are
faster
they
than
are
that.
really
But-
quick. But there are days that you're like,
But if you're leaving work, going to the drive-through, placing your order, getting your coffee, going back to work, that's 15 or 20 minutes easy.
yeah. Well, I honestly think the only people that were able to pull that off were people that worked for themselves. So
Yeah.
like whether they were construction workers, or because that was a lot of them, was the tradespeople. We would see maybe they were in between jobs, like going from one job to the next.
Or
Hence,
if you're the guy that does the coffee run for
Yeah,
the
if you-
office or something.
I felt so bad. Which Tim Hortons was it? Because I used to work at the one near the prison, like Kingston Pen, when it was open.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like it wasn't every day. I feel like it was once a week.
Okay.
Someone would buy the coffees, and there was like a good 27 coffees.
Oh, wow.
So they'd call it ahead at like 6 a.m, and we'd have it ready for 9.
Right.
And there'd be like, we used to have like trays, not like the 4-cup trays, but like box trays.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. I just feel bad. I was like, man, if they tip over in your car, like I'd
Yeah,
cry.
right?
I would cry.
That sounds like a 2 or 3 person type job.
Yep. It definitely was.
You know? It's like,
I don't even know how they'd cart it, because even,
yeah.
oh, it's giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
exactly. Wow.
I've seen people, so there was a deal on drinks at Starbucks over the summer, like one of their like summer drinks or whatever. So a friend of mine and her daughter ordered like enough, and then she was like, "Okay, it should be fine in the," and she's like, "Nope, spilled everywhere," because it wasn't stable enough in the
yeah.
in the cup tray.
Yeah, you
and I'm just
gotta-
like, yep.
And when you've worked a job like that, because I worked at McDonald's and A&W and those kinds of places, you get to know those drink trays and know how to put them in properly. And it I don't know if it bugs you, but when they put them in wrong,
Or they don't.
they haven't balanced them properly.
Oh, all the time.
You know.
So like people don't, and I don't usually take a drink tray, because I can usually, so when I go and pick up my order for the day, especially if I'm working a double, I only go once.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm working a double, that drink stays in my cup the entire day, and I grab it on the second job. They're like, "Oh, do you want to try?" I'm like, "Nah, it's not gonna last that long." But I won't. Like, it bothers me because they'll put like the lighter drink on the corner and then the other 2 heavy ones on one side. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, why
what
would
are
you do
doing?
that?
Yeah. It's like, or you only have 2 drinks, but there's a 4 holes, and they put them both on one side.
Oh, that bothers
It's
me.
like diagonal, you stupid bitch.
And I mean, I understand they're in a hurry, and they most of the time they're trying their
science, kids.
I
It's
know,
science.
but
Come on.
some of them like they're new, and you can tell they're new, and you're like, oh, sweetie, it's okay.
Or the handing back of change. So I at McDonald's, she knows this story because it's a pet peeve of mine. At McDonald's, when I was trained, there was only cash and traveler's checks back then, kids.
Oh God,
Yes.
no thanks.
Yeah. So
Okay, no. Did you still have like somewhat of a computer screen you could punch the numbers in, or are we going further back?
we're going a little further back. It was computerized, but it was newly computerized because we had to memorize the menu in case the computers went down.
Oh my God, I'd die. I would die.
And we had little pen and paper so we could add it up and everything if we needed to. Yeah, you had to know
I was
math.
gonna say we're talking like 20 years difference here.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing they taught you back then, because it was mostly a cash society,
yep.
there was no debit cards or anything like that, is hand the change back first and then the bills. Because if you hand the bills and then put the change on top, you're like doing this and your change goes flying. So it only makes sense to do change and then bills. But nowadays, it's like no one's handled cash in forever.
Or they don't understand how to count back.
Oh,
so like I
yes.
was guilty of this for a week, and then one of my supervisors was like, "You and I are gonna work on this until you get it." And now that I have it, because you basically say your order is like $4.50, because I'm using round numbers.
Yeah.
And they pay with a 20. You put the 20 in front of you. Don't put it in the cash till.
Yeah.
Until you count the change.
Yeah.
And you got your 50
50 cents
to make
puts
it
you
a
at
5, and then you grab your 3 5s to make it 20,
Yeah.
and then you hand the change first, and then the bills.
Yeah. There you go. That's how it's done, kids.
Yeah.
That's how it's
But
done.
nobody knows how to count back change
No,
anymore.
because it's like $5, 10, 15, 20.
Yeah.
Boom. There you go.
Yeah.
And but it blows their mind when you can do that. Or God forbid, you give them a 20 and say it's $4.10, and you say I have 10 cents. It throws them off. It's like,
Yeah, and
I don't know how to do
I
it
can
now.
kind of understand that, because like it used to for me until like I got really quick at it. But like mental math isn't a thing anymore, because
Oh, no.
everyone has. So they're like, especially if you punch in the wrong thing, or if an order doesn't, because sometimes the order didn't flip over properly, so like they would get
Oh.
messed up in the order of which they showed up. So
Right.
then you'd have to go hunting for it, or you would have to, like, sometimes you would just have to be like, oh, I see it's this total, and then do the mental math in your head, give them the change and let them go, and then zero it out later.
Right.
Which can get dicey if you don't know how to count properly. And I mean, I'm not, saying I'm perfect, but like there were days I made mistakes. And like, but like even nowadays, like you press the wrong button, they're like, what do I do? I'm like, count back in your head.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's
What
that?
was the total? What did they give you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But mental math isn't a thing anymore.
No. And people get thrown off big time.
Well, and I mean, I get it, because I'm not a big numbers person, but like, if it's money related, can't do it.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
It just depends. Though.
But numbers are my thing.
Yeah, numbers are your thing. I took psychology for a reason. Very minimal math.
Yeah, not much. Yeah. But I mean, granted, I do what I call concrete math. So I can count back and change. I know, how to count money. I know how to add,
useful
subtract. Useful, everyday math. I don't use.
So if
you've
I told you-
lost me at cosines and.
So if I told you the quadratic formula, you wouldn't be able to.
I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I remember how to write it.
Is that a recipe you're giving me?
I can't solve it. I would have to relearn how to solve it. But because I learned it at Pop Goes the Weasel,
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because
yeah.
there is a lot of good science to putting things you want to memorize to music or rhythms.
Yeah.
And it will stick in your brain forever.
Yeah, it will. It
I haven't
definitely
used it in
will.
over 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's still there.
Yeah, because I learned my equations. Women need that, especially if you're going to bake.
Yep.
I mean, men need it too for their baking, because baking is a more precise art than cooking.
Yep.
With cooking, you can kind of
You can be like, I can measure with
fudge
my
it a
heart.
little. Yeah, exactly.
Baking, if you put don't put enough powder in, or you mix it with something else, you're like, well, that's not okay.
One time I made a cake for my mom and dad's anniversary, and I confused the sugar and the salt. It was not a good cake. So I learned my lesson.
That's fair. That's fair. I do baking about twice a year.
Yeah. I know there's never ever a recipe that's going to call for a half a cup of salt.
Now I'm thinking of the Friends episode where they all do like a potluck Thanksgiving, or Monica complains that she does everything, so she makes everyone in charge of like a
Oh,
a
yeah,
plate,
and Rachel's
it
doing,
has the
like-
trifle,
Yes.
and it's like half on one page and half on the other, so there's like half dessert and then it's like half main course of like peas.
Starts
and-
getting savory.
yeah. Meanwhile, Joey's eating the whole thing.
He's like, this is delicious.
Yeah. The rest of them are like, oh god. Yep.
Oh my god.
Pay attention to
I think
your
it was like
ingredients.
shepherd's pie and
Yeah.
trifle or whatever it was.
Definitely.
It's like,
She's like,
"That's too
what?
funny."
I just followed the recipe.
Oh my
Aging
god.
myself there.
Oh wow. Well, this was I think a pretty good talk on the death card.
And our little tangents.
It's not well. We talked about it a little bit last week because it was one of the scary
Yes,
cards.
it was one of the scary cards.
Yeah. So
I really like the death card. I feel like there's a good promise, hope of like rebirth, and like you're on the right path. You just have to take a bit of a turn, and yeah, I like it.
And I like seeing what cards are around it, knowing where it's being influenced, right? Like maybe it's a change of job, maybe it's a change of home, maybe it's a change of a relationship. Who am I to say? You know?
Yep.
I'm not here to judge who you sleep with.
Nope, no judgment.
Exactly. You do you. And as long as you're not hurting anyone else, we're good. All right. So I guess that's it. Oh, I was like looking at my lamp and it looks like the little bell.
Like sorry, are you behind you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of looks like the little bell you tell everyone to press on.
Oh yes, it does.
Now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Yep.
But,
So that's our example of like press the subscribe button.
Yeah.
And notifications.
there's our segue right there. Press the little fairy bell, subscribe, find us on Facebook, type in Goddess Garage, all the things will come up.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here with us tonight to celebrate death.
Death and the thinning of the veil and all that fun stuff.
Exactly. We're going into the dark time of the year.
Ooh.
Ooh, I love the dark time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.